We'll give people another couple of minutes to join. So now's your chance if you want to get a refreshing beverage. Good day, and welcome to this session on building smart money habits for financial well-being. I'm Walt Bishke. I am the Associate Director of Admissions in the Graduate School at Vanderbilt University. By the end of this session, you are going to understand how to analyze current spending and saving habits, challenges and opportunities that go along with that, apply budgeting strategies, develop smart financial goals, and understand debt and how to manage it. Before we start, let's just talk about what is financial well-being. It's a state of being where a person can fully meet current and ongoing financial obligations and can feel secure in their financial future and can make choices that allow enjoyment of life. This diagram shows the four elements of financial well-being and how to balance security and freedom of choice with your present and future financial needs. So, for example, having security in the present means having control over your day-to-day or month-to-month finances. Having security in the future means the capacity to absorb a financial shock, unexpected expenses. Having freedom of choice in the present means having financial freedom to make choices to enjoy life. You have the resources you need to do the things you want to do. And having freedom of choice in the future means you remain on track to meet your financial goals. This diagram shows how your financial decisions are influenced by your personal values and your personal identity. What lifestyle do you want for yourself? So your values could include living alone, having nice clothes, downtown life, maybe comparing your situation with that of your friends, because we all compare ourselves to our friends. Your identity could include where you came from, the standard of living that you've had up to now, and what you expect to have going forward, and how your current financial resources can support the lifestyle that you want. So let's talk budgeting. Here's the practical application of these esoteric concepts. A budget is a tool that can help you manage your monthly and day-to-day spending with one goal of making sure that your expenses don't exceed your income so you don't end up in debt. Many of you probably have experience already with a personal budget. Some of you may not, but this presentation hopefully will give you some new ways to think about budgeting and managing your finances and keeping your costs below the income that's coming in each month. We're going to talk about that. So let's define some terms in the areas of income and expenses. Your total income, such as gross versus net. Your gross income is the income before taxes, and the net income is what you actually keep after taxes. Your discretionary income is any income that you have left over after all of your monthly expenses are paid. This is your fun money to do the extra things that you want to do, like eating out and going to the movies and buying a new watch or whatever. Your expenses come in two varieties: fixed expenses and variable expenses. So your fixed expenses are the expense amounts that will be the same from month to month, like your rent. And your variable expenses are the expense amounts that can change from month to month, like groceries, gasoline, concert ticket, taking a friend out for a birthday dinner, things like that. So what are some of the benefits of using a budget? Why are we talking about this? Well, a budget can help you understand your living expenses. Where does most of your money go? What are your largest and smallest expenses? Budget can help you pay off student loans. If you're paying off a large debt, you'll need to plan in order to do it in regular monthly payments. A budget can help you plan for retirement. You all might think that retirement is a long way off, but it's never too early to start saving up money. A budget can help you establish an emergency fund. And we'll talk about the concept of an emergency fund where you have cash on hand for unforeseen expenses that could exceed your monthly income. And I'm sure many of you have probably dealt with having to have an emergency car repair or something like that that you didn't expect to pop up, and all of a sudden we're strapped for cash unless we have planned and budgeted and set aside money in an emergency fund. A budget can help you to pay your bills on time every time. So being mindful about your spending will reduce the risk that you overspend on the fun items before the bills are due. And it will, setting up an auto pay is another great way to stay on top of your budgets and your bills and make sure that you don't get any late fees and forget or miss payments. A budget can help you establish and track credit. So a good credit history and credit score will be important when you want to buy a house or a car down the road. They're going to be looking at your credit score and your credit history when you apply for that loan. So you want to practice good habits as much as possible. A budget can help you live within your means so that you don't spend more than the income you receive. This means you don't use credit cards as an emergency fund, because debt can snowball fast along with interest if your strategy is to use a credit card for an emergency fund. Of course, credit cards are good for some of those big expenses that pop up, but if you are carrying a balance forward each month, it's very easy to have that snowball and get larger with interest or with other expenses that you put on the card before you know it, you won't be able to pay it off in a single month, and that balance can keep growing, and it can happen very quickly. So if you have not experienced that, I'm glad, and we want to make sure that you don't experience that situation. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to offer this session today. And last, having a budget will cause you to be a social deal seeker. By that, we mean that you think about the value of things and you compare prices. Where can you find the goods and services you want for a reasonable price? This can take some effort on your part to seek out, but the money that you save will be worth it. Word of mouth can help you find a good, honest car mechanic, for example, who does good work and doesn't overcharge customers. Here is an example of a simple monthly budget spreadsheet. This is what it can look like on paper for you to list your sources of income and your anticipated expenses, and to help you make sure that your total amount of expenses don't exceed your total amount of income. So just a quick tour through this page. You account for your projected monthly income, the stipend that you know you'll be getting. Maybe you have an extra side gig where you do some tutoring and bring in some extra money, so you will know that your neighborhood of total monthly income. And then you have, right after that, all of your expenses laid out, the projected expected expenses. And as we said, there's usually some unexpected expenses that can pop up, like a car repair you weren't expecting. So that's where it's important to have some cash reserves in an emergency fund so that you don't have to use a credit card and risk going into debt. And you can also anticipate expenses, such as your entertainment expenses. If you're going to the movies with friends, if clothes shopping is your thing, or if you're a collector of things, you can anticipate those expenses and set aside amounts in your budget that you expect to spend each month. A budget can help you answer the question, where does your money go? What amount did you spend it on? On what? On groceries, on eating out, on Uber, on clothes shopping. Budget can also help you identify your needs versus wants. Do you need to buy that new jacket, or do you just want it because it's a more current style than your old jacket? Budget can help you, as we said a moment ago, anticipate one-time expenses, such as maybe annual dues for some organization you belong to, or a new software license. When you know that an expense is coming up, you can start setting aside money in the months or weeks leading up to that big annual expense, and then it won't be such a hit on your current monthly budget. Budget can also show you your patterns of spending. How much money do you spend on eating out each month? Is that your biggest discretionary expense? So here is a model that's helpful, the 50-20-30 rule. And this is a framework for thinking about how to allocate your income across your various expenses in a month. So pretty simple and straightforward. So 50% of your total income would go towards housing, transportation, groceries, the essential expenses. 20% of your monthly income could go to savings, building up your savings, building up your emergency fund, paying off high interest debt if you're already carrying credit card balances. You might hear it said that in addition to paying your bills each month, you need to pay yourself. And that means setting aside some savings. And the remaining 30% of your monthly income can go to lifestyle choices, such as your entertainment, going out to eat, time with friends, things like that. Here is another helpful framework for thinking about how to allocate your income across your various expenses in a month. And it's just to give you some ideas of how you can experiment and personalize a budget and an allocation plan for you to your lifestyle. But this shows 35% of your monthly income going to housing, 25% to lifestyle, 15% to transportation costs, whether that's ride share or gasoline for if you own a car or a motorcycle, 15% towards debt repayment. You have to plan for making those monthly payments and bills. And this model has 10% going into savings each month. Let's talk about SMART goals. Maybe some of you have heard this acronym before, setting financial goals with the SMART goals method. Let's say you want to save up $500 to take a road trip with your friends over spring break. We can apply the SMART goals framework as follows. Looking at the S in the acronym means specific. What do you want to do? I want to save $500 for a spring break road trip to Chattanooga with my friends. M, measurable. How will you know when you've reached your goal? When I have $500 saved in my spring break fund. Achievable. Is it in your power to accomplish this? Yes. If I plan ahead, save a little at a time, maybe $125 a month over 4 months, starting in December. By March, you'll have that $500. Realistic. Can you realistically achieve this goal? Yes, but I'll have to make choices about spending in other areas, like eating out or how many concerts I allow myself each month. So maybe a more realistic goal is to start saving in November and spread the cost over 5 months at $100 each month. Timely. When exactly do you want to accomplish this goal? I want to have $500 saved by spring break week. So that's an example of how you can plan with the SMART goals method. There's also a wealth of budgeting apps out there. Some of you may have already been using a budget app on your phone or have heard of some of these, but just for the sake of information, wanted to share about Credit Karma, formerly known as Mint, for just about everything. The Mint app is going away, but Mint.com is being replaced by Credit Karma. Good Budget for hands-on envelope budgeting. And envelope budgeting, that concept is that each budget item has its own envelope where you deposit the budgeted amount of cash you'll spend on that item this month. So you don't spend more than the cash in the envelope for that item. Say you set aside $500 for groceries, for example. YNAB stands for You Need a Budget, and that's for hands-on zero-based budgeting. The concept of zero-based budgeting is that your income minus your expenses equals zero. So if you make $5,000 in a month, everything that you give, save, or spend that month should add up to $5,000. Every dollar that comes in has a purpose, a job, and a goal. Every Dollar is another app for simpler zero-based budgeting. Personal Capital for tracking wealth and spending, for those of you who may have investment portfolios. Pocket Guard for a simplified budgeting snapshot. Honeydew for budgeting without syncing accounts, without syncing your bank account to the app. And Fudget for budgeting without I'm sorry, Honeydew is for budgeting with a partner. So that'll be something that you can share with your partner. And Fudget is for budgeting without syncing accounts, without syncing your bank account to the app. Vanderbilt also provides for its graduate students an app called Grad Ready. And this is an optional free tool that includes information for managing tuition, budgets, and bills. And when you go to vanderbilt.gradready.com, you'll need to create an account, and you'll always maintain access to this tool as a student and after you leave Vanderbilt. So it's designed to help you understand your financial aid, manage your finances, and everything else in your financial orbit. Let's talk about debt. That's the flip side of the positive financial principles that we've been discussing. So, what is debt? Debt is something, usually money, owed by one party to another. And we probably don't have to go into much detail about this, but here are some reasons why debt is bad for you, and you should take steps to avoid going into debt. Debt encourages you to spend more than you can afford, and credit cards are the number one way that this situation happens. Debt costs money. Credit card debt often carries a high interest rate, which makes the total amount grow before you can pay it off. Debt borrows from your future income. You could become weighed down with monthly credit card bills that limit your remaining monthly cash flow. Debt and high interest debt causes you to pay more than the item costs because you're accruing interest on that credit card balance. Debt keeps you from reaching your financial goals. You have limits to what you can spend because there are other commitments. Your money has to go to paying off those bills. Debt can keep you from owning a home. We talked about credit score and credit history before, and a low credit score can be a barrier to securing a loan for a house or a car. Debt can lead to stress and serious medical problems. There's no anxiety like financial anxiety, so that's pretty obvious. Debt can hurt your marriage. There are studies that show that one of the number one topics of argument between couples is about finances, money. Debt also hurts your credit score, as we've discussed before. So how can we manage debt? Let's talk about some tips to avoid getting into debt in the first place. So for starters, you want to gather your data, your financial data, organize your statements and bills with a good filing system so you have all of your facts and information in front of you. Make a financial inventory. Understand where the money is going each month. And that's synonymous with the budgeting work that you'd be doing. Lower your interest rates. You can either negotiate with your current credit card company or transfer a balance to a lower interest credit card. Pay more than the minimum on the credit card bills. Paying the minimum doesn't help you to get ahead of the interest that accrues on the balance. Increase your income. Can you do side gigs, tutor, sell things? Where else can you bring in money if you need to? Cut unnecessary spending. Where are you spending a lot of money? Eating out? Are you buying lots of new clothes, designer clothes? Maybe consider going to some thrift shops and vintage clothing stores versus buying things new. Create a new budget. If your current plan isn't working, you can scrap it and start a new plan. Again, create that emergency fund. Be able to handle an emergency car repair or a plane ticket without creating a cash flow crisis for other bills and expenses during that month. Something else you can consider in terms of lowering your costs is rent negotiation. You can ask a landlord if the rent price is open to discussion. You may be surprised at their willingness to consider discounts for being a good tenant. For example, you can highlight your strengths as a tenant, that you pay your rent on time, that you take good care of the property, that you live in harmony with the other tenants, maybe even organize community events with neighbors. You can inquire about extending the lease because some landlords will trade a lower rent for a longer commitment, especially if you're a good tenant. You can offer to end the lease in the summer because this is the prime time for landlords to find new tenants, and lots of people are looking for places at this time. So it's advantageous to the landlord. Research the property's value. This is an example of being a deal seeker. Is there another apartment with similar amenities for a lower rent? You could use this information as leverage in the discussion with your current landlord. And be open to compromise. Any agreement or negotiation should be win-win, and it should be a good deal for both parties. There's got to be give and take, and each party has to have a good outcome in a good negotiation. And negotiate directly and follow up in writing. You may have a discussion and a handshake, but make sure you write it in an email or letter, have some documentation of what you and your landlord may agree to. Also, you should have a backup plan. What will you do if the landlord won't negotiate and you need to find another place or that fits better fits your budget? You need to think a few steps ahead to the downstream possibilities. So let's say you find yourself in debt. What are some next steps that you can take to get yourself out of that situation? We recommend that you draft a plan because you'll need to take intentional action that's different than the actions and patterns that got you into debt in the first place. Set financial goals, as we've discussed, being aware of your costs and your income and maybe new sources of income. Understand your habits from identifying and tracking your expenses with that budget. Categorize spending and saving. You have to be intentional. You have to have a plan. Identify future spending. As we said, sometimes there are some expenses that you can anticipate. It's a good idea to have a 12-month calendar and write in the expenses you expect to have through the year so that you can plan ahead and save up each month for those things. maybe a plane ticket for a summer trip, or an annual renewal fee for your car registration, or a birthday dinner for a friend. Some of these things, you know when they'll be coming up, and you can save a little each month leading up to it so that it's less of a hit on your current monthly budget. We also want you to be aware of the Center for Student Wellbeing here at Vanderbilt. The mission for the Center of Student Wellbeing is to create a culture that supports the personal development and academic success of students using an integrative, holistic framework. So some of the things that you can take advantage of from the Center for Student Wellbeing include well-being, academic, and peer coaching one-on-one, recovery support services, meditation and yoga sessions, certain student-led initiatives, substance use screenings, awareness and prevention program, skill building workshops, and these people are willing to sit down with you and help you work out your own personal financial well-being plan based on your income and your expenses. So there's help available. So at this point, I wanted to thank all of you for taking the time to join us today. And we hope that you have found something of interest, and wanted to go ahead and open it up for any questions that you might have, not only on financial well-being, but any other topic related to being an incoming first-year graduate student. Do we have any questions from anyone at the session here? Well, if not, I hope that you have found this to be helpful. Hope that you heard something that was new and practically applicable for you. If you have any further questions or want to get in touch with me or anyone else in the graduate school or in the department to which you've been admitted, you can contact us at graduatesschooladmissions@vanderbilt.edu, and we will be glad to provide information that you need. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Once again, I want to congratulate you on your admission, and we hope that these sessions through this week are helpful, have been helpful for you, and we hope that you'll consider Vanderbilt for your graduate education. So thank you for joining us. There'll be a recorded copy of this session on the graduate school website afterwards. Thank you, everybody.